Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. The world of Grange Hill was shocked and saddened this week when we heard the news that Stuart Organ had passed away. Stuart played Mr. Peter Robson from Series 11 to Series 26 of Grange Hill and was Grange Hill's longest serving cast member, appearing in 265 episodes. The next episode of Sausage on a Fork will be a tribute to Stuart and will feature interviews and messages from his fellow cast members. Our thoughts are with his family and friends at this sad time. Okay, welcome to the latest episode of Sausage on a Fork, and I am absolutely delighted to say that I have been joined by none other than Michael Obiora, who played Max Abassi. Michael, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Hey, let's hear it for Michael Obiora. I'm actually applauding you because you should be very proud that you pronounced my surname correctly.
Thank you very much.
I mean, it was first heard, over 30 years ago, since I'm such a veteran. I don't really know what's wrong with people. But yeah, good job. No, happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what we'll do, Michael, is we'll start the way we start every episode. And if you can tell us how you first got into acting.
I first got into acting because I grew up idolizing Michael Jackson.
Right, wow.
And he was my absolute, I'll never forget the first time I ever saw an image of him on screen was, I probably was about maybe 5 or 6, and it was an image of the Bad World Tour. So that must have been a few years prior because I was about 6. I was born in '86. So I remember seeing a VHS of it, and actually I didn't know whether Michael Jackson was male or female. I didn't know what that was.
Right.
I'm being told. I saw this image. And I saw the moves, I saw the adulation. It was a mix of the adulation and also the fact that I didn't know what that was. I'd never seen, I didn't, I genuinely didn't know. And I couldn't believe the effect that when I came to learn it was a he, had on people. And I just said, I just want to know more about that. And I just became absolutely obsessed with him. And we went to Nigeria, where my parents are from, when I was about 6. So I think that was the second time I'd been there. So around the time I first, got introduced to Michael Jackson. And I remember there was a village concert going on. And the tradition is when you dance, the people, the audience, the revelers, they stick money to your sweat to show their appreciation.
Right.
So, and I was watching this happen, and my uncle dared my sister to go on stage. She said, no way. And I heard him dare her. He didn't even have to dare me. I ran to the stage. And I was a really, really chubby, kid. I ran towards the stage and I started dancing. And I don't know if I was good. I don't know anything. All I know is that I had loads of money stuck to my body. I had loads of money around my feet. And it was the happiest I had ever felt. I felt truly comfortable. And I remember with the money I bought all the kids Ribena.
Wow.
because we're from a poor part of Nigeria. And so it was a big deal and they were so happy. And I thought, wow, so you can do this performance thing, get rewarded for it, and in turn kind of pay it forward sort of thing. And it was amazing. It was amazing. I remember we didn't have a fridge or something. I remember the Ribena ended up being really warm.
Right.
And but everybody was so happy. And my mum said to me, when we get back to the UK, when we get back to London, I'll put you in drama lessons. And she did.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember being in drama lessons from 7 years old. And and by the time I was 9, I was on Grange Hill.
Yeah, that's the thing. So you were 9 years old when you got the part of Max. And that's pretty incredible. You must have been the youngest ever to have been on.
I remember I was always told I was the youngest.
Wow.
Sometimes I've gone back and said to myself, let me see if I can do the timeline. Was I 9? Was I 10? Was that, what was it? But I'm pretty sure I was 9. Right. I remember the audition process went on for ages. When you're that age, a week seems like a year. So, but I remember there were many auditions, and the whole process was from 9 to 10 years old or
Right.
something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
From being in Nigeria dancing in the village to being on screen with Grange Hill, it
Yeah.
really did sort of just happen. I mean, I knew from that moment on stage in Nigeria, I needed to do this. I really needed to do this. I'd never been more sure about anything. In fact, I've never been more sure since then. Since then,
Wow.
I've never been certain about anything since then. Then that was the only time I can say I was certain about something, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah, it
Brilliant.
was nice. It was a very big learning experience. It's a gift and a curse, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing.
And and so you said you went to drama lessons. Did you go to like stage school, or was it just sort of like a
The
club room?
first ever stage school I went to I was too young.
Right.
I remember them telling me you're too young or something for the stage school I wanted to go to. I remember I went to Anna Scher
Uh-huh.
and they had some sort of summer camp because I
Right.
was too young to join it full time or something.
Uh-huh.
And I think there was a summer camp where it lasted for a few weeks, and then the winner gets some sort of, I don't know, pass to join the next year or something.
Right.
I remember either all I know is I didn't get it. I
Right.
either was too young or I didn't win or whatever. I remember there was this girl, she was a little bit older, maybe she was about 11 or something, and she was incredible. I remember looking at this girl. I've got a vague, like sort of vivid image of her in my head. And I just
Uh-huh.
remember thinking, she's incredible.
Yeah.
She's just something else. So I need to kind of know that that's the level. Um, but and then in terms of when I actually started drama lessons, I started one round the corner from where I lived at the time in Edgware in North London. And I think it was called Crystal Arts or
Right.
something. And I went there and I remember being pulled to the side by the teacher. And he said to me, Michael, you're really, really talented. I said, thank you. He said, you need you need to join a place that has an agency because
Uh-huh.
I don't think this is something you're doing recreation.
Right.
I told my dad, him and my dad spoke, and I think a few weeks later I moved on to another place, and that place was called Sharon Harris,
Right.
and that was in Wembley, and that was a place I went to every Thursday.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't like Italia Conti or Anisha. You could go weekly or on a weekend.
Right.
And Anisha and Italia Conti also was a full-time school too. I didn't go to a full-time school. I went to Sharon Harris once a week,
Uh-huh.
and I went to a normal school. At the time, I was still in primary school,
Yeah.
and I actually also went to a normal secondary school too. So
Right.
I was living
Yeah.
parallel lives, really.
Brilliant. Okay. So you said about the audition, it went on for AIDS and stuff, and then you got the part of
Mm.
Max. And were you a fan of Grange Hill?
I I was a fan of Macaulay Culkin
Right. Okay.
from Home Alone.
Yeah.
I think by the time I joined Grange Hill, which was probably 1996 or something.
Yeah. Well, it went on 98, so it would have been early
Yeah.
97, I imagine.
Yeah. So around that time,
Yeah.
it wasn't it wasn't what it was in terms of, Tucker Jenkins is the biggest
Yeah.
character that's ever been on the show. But that was 20, 30
Yeah.
years prior to when so since then there'd been Sean Maguire and John Alford, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, them guys. So it was still big. It was big, but it wasn't. By the time I joined it, I think MTV, the American stuff was permeating a little bit more
Uh-huh.
uh, into worldwide, but into the UK a little bit more.
Yeah.
Sky, you're
Yeah.
watching Sky shows, Nickelodeon, all that type of stuff. So I always saw Grange Hill as a kind of UK Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of thing. It was big, but
Yeah.
I don't remember ever thinking, oh my God, I really want to be in Grange Hill. I
Right.
think I wanted to be a star. I wanted to
Uh-huh.
be an actor. I wanted to be something like Michael Jackson. I just wanted to be a performer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely, it's not that to say I was aware of Grange Hill would be playing it down too much. It was big, but I
Yeah.
think that by the time I'd got to it, you, and maybe it was just me, but it was more of a worldwide kind of idea I had in my head.
Right, I
You
get
know
you.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so like I say, you were 9 years old when you first got the part of Max, and then your first series was series 21. As I say, it went on
Yeah.
air in 1998, and it was weird the way series 21 started because it didn't start the normal way every other series did, with like, here's the kids on their first day at school and doing stuff like that. There was a caveman day.
I
You
remember in the
remember,
jungle.
right? So
Yeah. Because you know what? I actually auditioned for uh Ian Hudson's part.
all
John
right,
Hud-
okay,
John Hudson's part. John
yeah,
Hudson's part. The character was called Ian, right?
Ian, yeah,
Yeah. And I
wow,
auditioned for that part. And I remember always thinking, because he was a bully. And I
yeah.
remember
He
thinking,
was horrible.
okay, I mean, I was fat, I was quite cute. I don't know if I could quit. Like, do you know what I mean? But I remember I kept getting through to the next rounds,
Yeah,
and I think they gave me the script of Max, and they said, I think I ad-libbed something. I
right.
don't know, or maybe I mistakenly said one of Max's lines,
Uh-huh.
and then I don't know if it was Stephen Andrews or one of the adults in there. Everybody seems like they're 100 years old when you're
Yeah,
that young. And they were like, "Hey, no, actually, why don't you?" And I don't know if I liked that idea that much, but I just
right,
did it. I just went with it. And then I got Max instead. Maybe there were at least four auditions, maybe
right.
five. And I remember my dad took me to all the auditions. And I remember when I remember the final audition, my dad had a heart attack
Wow.
at BBC Elstree
Oh,
Studios.
no way.
I'm 9. I didn't know what was happening. He sat down. So we'd done the audition, everything's done. He sat down, I don't know, on a wall or something, and he was just really still holding his chest. I'm 9. I'm looking at him. And I asked him if he's okay. He couldn't really speak. And he was just sitting there. I'm 9. I don't know what to do.
Wow.
So then this lady walks by. Now, I don't remember this lady's name, but I guarantee you know her face. She was a really famous newsreader, really, really famous. As soon as I saw her, I knew she was from the news. She had short hair,
Uh,
and then she looked and she came running over. She was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Sort of thing. And I just explained to her what happened. Ambulance came. We're in Barnet General Hospital. I remember it was crazy, and
Wow.
I don't think there were mobile phones then.
Right.
So I remember having to get 10, somebody gave me 10p. I had to phone my mom from a phone box. She came to the hospital. It was crazy. And
Yeah.
I remember sitting, we didn't have a car. So it took them 10 years to get to the hospital. And I remember sitting down in the waiting room. They didn't want me to be in the room with my dad or something. And
Uh-huh.
I was watching The Bodyguard on
Right.
the TV. I'll just never forget it. Just never forget it. I
Yeah.
was watching The Bodyguard. And I remember sitting, it was just, can you imagine just the emotions going through my head? So I've done the fourth or fifth audition. I'm 9 years old. My dad's having a heart attack. We're in the hospital. I'm watching The Bodyguard and I'm thinking, well, I hope my dad doesn't die. Oh my God, Whitney Houston is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God, I want to be in this film. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I want to be an actor. Oh, I've just done this audition. I better get this part. Oh, I better get it now. My dad's had an audition. It was really crazy. And it
Yeah.
really did something to my chemistry because there are parts of that behavior that I still carry to this day.
Yeah.
It let me know how important being an actor was to me from such an early age. It's a very, very strange thing. And for years, I had regret about that. I had regret for years about the order of my thoughts,
Uh-huh.
the fact that I wasn't so, I don't know, crestfalling and devastating and not thinking about anything else apart from my dad's health. I
Yeah.
mean, I was only 9. How emotionally mature can you be? You can't be.
No.
But I will never forget that experience. But I took it in my stride. I was like, this is, something that's happening along the way, and I must get this part.
Yeah. Okay. Kids tend to deal with things better than adults do, don't
Absolutely.
they? Don't
Absolutely.
they? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. So So that's incredible. So as we've said there, it was Caveman Day. And Max, at first, I thought he's going to be a bit of a know-all, this kid, because he's trying to, like, every time someone says something, he's trying to, like, sort of contradict them. And there's a bit where he's looking at the map for where they are in the middle of the woods. One of the teachers comes over and just turns the map around because he's looking at the map upside down. Right? And then we see he's there with Mr. Brisley and a few others, and he's building a shelter. And he's got his own plans for a shelter, and he says this will be much better. And Mr. Brisley says, yeah, that would be much better if we were in the snow, because you've got the plans for an igloo there. And then we see Mr. Hankin trying to light a fire.
You know what? I was waiting for you to mention Mr. Hankin, because he is exactly who I remember from that day.
Right.
I remember him just being really, 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 really nice to us. I think he used to do magic or something. Like, I think in between scenes he would do magic or something. I just remember him being a really, really sweet guy, and I remember recognizing him as well.
Yeah,
I remember seeing him and thinking, oh yeah, I know him. You know, Mr. Robson, Sally Gurgan. Those guys.
Brilliant. So then we see Mr. Hankin trying to light a fire by rubbing sticks together, and Max just wanted to use matches to light the fire instead, but he was annoyed that everyone else managed to do it, but Max didn't. And like I say, I got this impression that he was going to be a bit of a know-all, and I'm glad that he wasn't in the end. You know what I mean? I'm glad that he wasn't. Where was that filmed? Can you remember that?
It was filmed, I think it was somewhere in Hertfordshire.
Right.
Yeah. It seemed so far when we were kids. It's like, where are we going on this bus?
And was it daily shoots, or did you stay over somewhere?
Oh, no. Went home every day. Yeah, daily shoots. Yeah, went home every day.
Cool. And there's another bit where, because they were either gatherers or they were settlers or they were hunters, and they all swapped around. There's a bit where there's a hunter, and Adam thought that he heard something in the bushes. And he throws something. He throws a rock into the bushes.
I remember.
which hit Max.
Yeah, I remember. You know what? Now I actually even remember the scene. I remember. So that was Adam, played by Sam Bardens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do the thing. Yeah, I remember. I was wearing a bandana. Oh, I remember it well. I remember it well. I remember lots about that day. That day, do you know that day when we filmed, or that storyline? So I was, again, 9 or 10. It was the first time ever away from the acting. I asked a girl out. I asked a girl to be my girlfriend.
Wow.
I remember. But
are you going to tell us who that was? Yeah.
she was an extra.
Right.
She was an extra, and she said, "Oh, sorry, I've got a boyfriend." She was a little she said, "Sorry, I've got a boyfriend," and her friend said, "No, you haven't." And then she elbowed her friend and went, "Shut up." I was devastated.
Oh.
I was so crushed. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
It ruined my week. It really did.
Well, do you know what? That sort of similar thing happens just a little bit further on in that scene, because Max walks out and he sees Sian on her own. If you remember Sian, played by Tilly. Yeah. And he sees her and he just waves and says hi, and she just rolls her eyes and walks off on him. So nothing happened there, like, either.
Yeah, it did not happen. I remember for that first week or first block, I remember me and Tilly shared a car for a little while because we lived quite near each other, and we got on so well. We were friends. Yeah, she was my friend. Yeah.
Because she only did the one series, didn't she?
She only did the one series. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What do you mean?" Oh no, my parents want me to focus on my studies. I was devastated. She was fine though. I remember she was like, "Oh yeah, cool. It's been fun."
And also the other thing that was happening around in the woods was he thought he'd seen a wolf. If you remember that, they thought
the beast of Budmin Moor.
Yeah.
I remember.
It was Zoe was convinced she'd seen the wolf, and Max was saying, "Well, how come no one else has seen it?" And this is the first sort of thing that we really like sort of to do with Max's character, because Zoe says to him, well, she made a comment about him squinting all the time, I'm surprised you can see anything with the amount that you squint. And Max said, well, are you saying that I need glasses? And Sean said, no, more like a white stick. And it turned out that the wolf was a dog that Adam had collected when he was in the woods and had managed somehow to get back to the school.
Yeah, somehow.
And they have a thing where Adam's looking after the puppy, the dog, and the dog has puppies in one of the buildings on the school. It was like a shed. And Zoe was convinced that there was a wolf on site. She was taking people to see it. And when they get to the shed, the dog is gone because Adam had managed to smuggle the dog out with the puppies. So Max and the others then didn't believe Zoe at all, that there'd been a dog, and they were saying, oh, there must have been a ghost dog. So I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
That they decide to have a seance.
Yeah, I remember.
Now, that's something that every kid must have done at some point in their life, is said that they've had a seance or held some kind of seance type thing. But then they change it to a seance to Sean's gran. And while they're there, a window slams shut and they all screamed. And Mr. Robson suddenly appears.
He goes, I remember we were saying something like, is there anybody there?
Yeah.
He goes, there most certainly is.
Yeah.
This is crazy. It's amazing to me how much I remember. When you're telling me this, I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Oh, it's great. And I remember it was really cool. I don't think we were allowed to shoot at night. Maybe, but I remember they blacked out the windows.
Right.
To make it like it was a night shoot. And maybe we were filming in the winter, so it got darker earlier. So when we had to do some of the exterior. But yeah, that was great. So fun.
Brilliant. And then the next day, they all ended up in Mr. Robson's office. Now, everyone says when they were filming Grange Hill and they ended up in the head teacher's office, quite often you felt like you were actually genuinely in the head teacher's office, getting it selling off. And fortunately for the kids, Mr. Robson got a phone call about Adam and he had to leave. So we never really sort of found out the extent of the trouble that they got into. And in that year group, there was a few lads, but the sort of first real friendship that Max tended to have was with Adam, especially when Mr. Jones was being audible to Adam. And it was Max that sort of went and made sure that Adam was okay. And Adam then found a pair of glasses and said and then gave them to Max.
So sweet.
And Max then invited Adam to his house after school, which was actually, Max lived in a guest house, a hotel.
Do you know what? I don't remember that.
Yeah, so
I live in a guest house?
Yeah, so his dad owned a guest house or a hotel. Because it's mentioned again in a couple of series later. It's on like a road and it's all sorts of different guest houses. And so he's playing pool with his mates.
Ah, yes, I remember. Yes, didn't we do a bet? We did a bet. And 50p or something. We did a 50p. Yeah, I remember.
So they're playing for that, and then they're playing pool, and they then decide to start playing baseball indoors, as kids do, by using a pool cue and a pool ball. Which straight away you're like, boys, what are you doing here? This is only going to go one way, isn't it? It's only going to go a Grange Hill way. And Adam accidentally smashed the glass cabinet in the house and walked out with Max calling him a coward and telling him not to come back.
Don't come back.
And then again, the glasses story again. Max is squinting at the board and Mr. Hankins asking him if he needs glasses. And Adam then says, well, you've got glasses, why aren't you wearing them? So Mr. Hankins tells him to put them on because Max was annoyed then with Adam because he was trying to get away with it. He was trying to, in high school, give himself a new start and try and do without the glasses. But then Ian Hudson found out that the lads had been round to Max's house and he hadn't been invited. So he wasn't happy with Max. And he didn't really like Adam to start with anyway. So
used to call him Wolf Boy, didn't he?
Yeah, he was audible to him. So what Ian did was he knocked Max's glasses onto the floor. Don't know if you remember that, and stood on the lens and broke them and told him that Adam had done it and he should let him get away with it.
Yeah.
So Max then pushes Adam to the floor. Adam just gets up and walks off. Like I always ask people like this, when you're doing, it wasn't a fight scene as such, but certainly with a push and a shove and he falls to the floor. Do you rehearse those scenes much?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we rehearsed it. I remember we had those crash mats down. Yeah, it was really, really safe. You know what? Honestly, I look back and one of the things I remember the most is just feeling looked after. Right. I felt safe at all times.
Yeah.
During my time in Grange Hill. Honestly, it was the best period of my life, probably.
Yeah. Wow.
Just you're happy, you're young, you are pretty unburdened. And it was like the best boot camp ever. While I was there. It's hard to navigate that in real life.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. And I don't know that everybody did.
Right.
I wouldn't, I'm a dad now, I wouldn't want my daughter to be a child star. No way.
Right.
But I did feel really, really looked after.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So was there anyone that you're saying that you felt looked after? Was there anyone that you were sort of really, really close to? You mentioned Tilly already, like, so.
Yeah, I would say my best friends on the show were Jessica Stavely Taylor.
Yeah.
She played Leah.
Yeah.
So she came in
a bit later on, yeah.
A bit later, maybe a year or two after I joined. She was my best friend.
Right.
She was my best friend. And that's another thing I look back on with Grange Hill. You could have a best friend that was a girl.
Yeah.
We didn't think of much. I don't remember for those 5 years I was on the show thinking about race. I didn't think about I feel like Grange Hill was effortlessly diverse.
Yeah, definitely.
As a school in and around London should be, but it just was, and just honestly, it was a family. I can say I've never done a job since then. Maybe it's because I was a child where I felt a sense of family. I haven't personally. My personality, I guess, kind of changed a bit, but I do think that time it was a wonderful family. So Jessica Stavely, I mean, we used to sit next to each other in tutoring. We were the best friends. Well, we were.
Yeah.
And also Daniel Lee, who played, was his character called Ben? Yeah.
Ben, yeah.
Ben. We were really close. We were really, really close as well. Daniel Lee, those two. Daniel Lee. Oh, and do you know the guy Francesco Bruno?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember how many years he did. I think he did maybe 2 or 3. But he got sacked from the show.
Wow.
He got sacked from the show.
I never knew that.
Yeah, he got sacked. And I was devastated.
Wow.
It was. I would say it was one of my first heartbreaks. It was like a breakup for me. I looked up to him. So Daniel and Jess were my best friends. And I don't know if they were in it when Franco was in it. So maybe that was later. But
when Ben and Franco were definitely together, yeah.
And I remember, Franco was older than me. He was really, really small. So he always seemed, he looked younger than his age, but he was older. He might have been a teenager. Maybe when I was 9 or 10, he was like 13 or something. He just seemed so cool. He was so confident. He was hilarious. He was such a funny guy. And I think they had written the part for him. I think he had auditioned, nothing really fit right. I think he kind of had a bit of an accent. Like he was just, but he was so cool. And he was probably the most popular guy, like amongst the cast. He was very, very popular. And I loved him. So it was those three,
And you've mentioned Jessica Stavely Taylor there. And did you know that she would go and do the things that she's done with the music and all? Could you tell then that that's what she was going to do?
No, but I didn't. I mean, I remember we stayed in touch till I was about 18.
Right.
Which was quite long because I left the show at 14 or 15.
Right.
When I say stayed in touch, I mean, I guess we would text or something. But I remember her telling me she was in a band with her sisters. Has she done the show?
No, not yet. No.
I remember
Jessica, if you're listening, you need to come on.
Come on. And I remember and I remember her telling me she was in a band, and I thought, oh, that's really, really cool. But I remember thinking she was a good actress when we were on the show, and I thought she was so beautiful. I thought she was so beautiful. So I think I thought she would be a star in some way. I just thought with that face, with her acting ability, and also she was so nice. We just got on so well. And I remember, I think I might have met her mum once or something, and her mum was lovely too. She seemed to come from a lovely family. She just seemed like a really together person.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so yeah, just going back there, we talked about Max and Adam had been friends, and then they sort of broke up a little bit. He had this argument and stuff, and then it never sat right with me that Max was friends with Ian Hudson at that time, because Ian was just horrible. He was horrible, and it didn't seem to be the type of person that Max would be friends with. And Max and Franco started turning on Ian when they'd been throwing paper pellets at each other, and they all got a class detention, even though Ian had lied and said it was Adam. And then there was a bit where Ian found out that Adam's mum had been killed, which is quite a harrowing thing to happen. But Ian, again, was teasing him about it. And Max walks away. Rather than say anything, I think Max is starting to realise this lad's a bit of an idiot, and I can't stand up to him because I'll get battered. But he didn't want anything to do with him, and he walks away. And then there's a bit that I do need to ask you about. It was after Judy Jeffries was knifed. There was a big thing in Grange Hill at the time about knife crime, and the class were talking about it. And Max says it was like his auntie who was scared to go outside at night. And he said that she had a phobia. Can you remember what phobia he said she had? Because he doesn't say the right word. He says that she had arachnophobia.
As opposed to agoraphobia.
As opposed to agoraphobia. And when it's pointed out to him that arachnophobia is the fear of spiders, he goes, yeah, well, I think she's got that as well. Just to try and save face. And then we move on then to series 22, which was your second series, and you were in year 8, but you were only in 8 episodes.
Was I?
Yeah. In series 22. Is there any reason for that one?
No, I can't remember. But what you've now made me remember though is I remember when I was auditioning for the part, so for series 1, for series 21. I remember I had auditioned for Les Mis as well. In fact, Les Mis might have been the first audition I'd ever gone to. I'd auditioned for a Just Juice commercial, Les Mis, and Grange Hill. Those are the things I'd only ever auditioned for before I started working. So I went up for Les Mis, and I remember I had told my teacher at school, so I'm in primary school at this stage, oh, I'm auditioning for Les Mis. He's like, oh my God, good luck. And he was so exciting. And I went on to learn that he always wanted to be an actor, and he was an Amdram guy. And so he asked me, oh, did you get Les Mis? How did it go? And I lied and told him I did get it.
No way.
I lied and said I got the part, right? And he was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And he announced it to the whole class. He got me to stand at the front. He announced it to the whole class. Everybody gave me a round of applause. He told me to take a bow. He said, get used to these round of applause. This is what's going to be happening for you. I went home. I couldn't sleep.
Oh, no way.
I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to eventually tell this guy I lied and tell everyone at school I lied. So then I remember a few days later, I come to school. He goes, Michael, I just bought tickets for Les Mis. I'm like, what? He's like, yes, I got advanced tickets. I got 2 tickets. What? I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I'm like, oh, thank you for getting tickets, sort of thing. Honestly, I was depressed.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I remember when the Grange Hill audition came about, and I kept getting to the next stage, I was like, I have to get this, because if I get this, it's a way I can wiggle out of my life. So I remember I got it, and I told him, you know what? I've chosen Grange Hill over because it's a better career move. I didn't even know how I came up with such nonsense at that age. I didn't even know what I knew what a career move was, but I told him, and he was like, "Oh, you know what? You're probably right. It's you're probably right. I'm still gonna go anyway." And I remember he still went and saw the play, told me it was okay, but I think it would have been better. He became one of my biggest advocates. He supported me throughout,
Yeah.
up until sort of like my early to mid 20s. He would send me messages, on Facebook, he was a big, big, big support. I remember when I was.
Did you ever tell him that you never got like
I
this?
never, I never told him.
Fingers crossed he's not listening to this one.
You know what, man? I've got to tell him. I've got to tell him, man. I've got to tell him. I have to tell him.
Brilliant. Okay, now I love that. Let's getting back to series 22, and this is where you first sort of your own sort of storyline, really, shall we say, is Max is hearing music in the school, and he goes to where the music is coming from, and it is the music room, and he walks in, and the school brass band is practicing, and Max is asking if he can join, and the music teacher's like, "Look, you never last long when you're learning musical instruments." He goes, "No, but I really want to get involved, but it sounds really good." He's been searching for the right instruments, is the words that Max uses. And of course, he gets given a brass instrument and he gets given a
tuba.
A tuba. Now, I don't know if you know this. If you Google Max Abassi Grange Hill, the first picture that comes up is Max holding a tuba.
Mm-hmm.
Could you play?
I had lessons. They came to my house. They gave me lessons. I think I had to play 3 notes or something. I remember it went dun 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 dun, and I remember, the teacher came around, and I remember, I was actually playing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. And Max had wanted to take the tuba home to practice to get better because the way the teacher spoke to him was horrible anyway. Basically saying, like he could. So it's good that he's keen and he wants to get involved with it, but he wouldn't let him. There's a bit where, because it wasn't insured out of school, he couldn't, and he was asked to take it back to the practice block. And then Max is one of the first people to see something else happening, and something else happening is Alec and Judy trying to escape from the fire.
Yes.
And saw Judy fall. And it's a strange one because I thought maybe Max was going to get more involved in that because he's walking across the playground and obviously, Laura sadly no longer with us. And everyone just says how wonderful she was as well. What worked on a couple of shows that you did as well with Albie and Casualty and stuff. But yeah, I just thought that there might have been something involved there because Max obviously seen it.
It's a good observation you made, because I think I'm almost certain that I was taken to the side and they asked me if I wanted some sort of support or counseling because it's quite a deep, image to see. I remember. And you know what? In all honesty, I remember thinking, I don't really know what they're talking about. I was so young. I remember thinking, I don't really understand why I know, because for me, it was very strange because, sometimes reality got blurred because if you say to me, what was your school like? By the time I was doing Grange Hill, I was in primary school, right? So it was like I'd suddenly jumped to secondary school.
Yeah.
So now, for years, I'd look back and my memories of school would be Grange Hill, not real school, or they would get mixed up. So it was like, what was my real life and not? And I'm not being dramatic. I really would have very strange dreams and not really know what was going on. Honestly, this is the absolute truth. I mean, you're 9. How's your brain developed? So you're taking in all these emotions, and sometimes your body feels it's real, but then also as well because I was acting and it really was a gift. I knew it wasn't, so I could see the imagery and feel I wasn't affected by it because I know that's not real blood. I know this, I know that. But when I think back to it, I remember she would have to, there was a stunt, and then they used a doll, and then she would have to lie into shot at the last minute, and and the blood coming out of her head. And that's, I mean, God,
Yeah.
So I remember. So maybe in terms of being involved more, maybe they realized how young I was, because I know people didn't know how young I was. I know that for a fact.
Right.
Because I've had times people say, if we knew you were that young, you might not have been in it.
Right. Wow.
It's not that I lied about my age or anything, but I was always very mature.
Yeah.
I am an old soul. Like I've never felt my age. I never really had friends my age. It was always, everybody was older.
Yeah.
Girlfriends, everyone, everything,
Yeah.
So yeah, that might have been something to do with it,
Right. Okay. So Max had been asked to perform as part of the brass band, and as I've said, he wasn't allowed to take the tuba home. But then the teacher said, you've got to practice every minute. And we then see what can only be described as a training montage in school. It's all like there's brass band music's playing, and there's all different clips of him in different places. And you just think, it's like Rocky. It's exactly like Rocky. This is
so it was so good.
And then Mr. Chapman said he could play in the concert, and he was able to take it home. But unfortunately, he's walking to school one day with his tuba case.
Absolutely.
And he gets stopped by the St. Joe's lads, who then throw it in the canal.
Yep.
And it floats away.
Camden Lock.
Is that where that was?
That was Camden Lock. Yeah. I was born in Camden, so
right. Okay.
It was around the corner. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, later on, because Max had gone in the canal trying to get it, the fisherman had seen it and managed to bring it back to the school, and the case had done its job and protected the tuba. And then Max got to perform in the concert. All was good, and Max's dad even came. But I believe that might have only been the only scene that you had a sort of appearance in that one. I don't. We never saw like a home scene or anything like that. It was just that one. Okay. And then you've mentioned Franco and Ben, and obviously they had their own sort of rivalry going on with football and stuff. Ben had taken Franco's place. So on the day of the final, Franco got Max to lock Ben in the changing rooms of the school, and Max did lock him in, even though he wasn't overly happy with the fact that he was doing that. Mr. Jones went looking for him, and Max even then lies to Mr. Jones and saying, he's lost his bottle, he's gone home, telling this story. But then Franco's conscience got the better of Franco, and he ran, and they let him out so that he could play in the end. And Grange Hill won the cup, and Max had left at this point when the match got played and they won the cup. But Luis Boamorte was there presenting the cup to them. Now, as an Arsenal fan, did you get to meet Luis Boamorte?
Check this out. Do you know, I probably realized it was Luis Boamorte when I was 30 years old.
Right.
I didn't know. I did not know. I did not know.
Wow.
And it's a shock to me that I did not know. I remember when Linford Christie was in one of the episodes.
Yeah.
I knew who that was.
Yeah.
We were all very excited. And also he kept messing up his lines. He kept messing up this guy. It was one line. It was like, just say your line, for goodness sake. It really made him seem like a mere mortal. Yeah, and that's crazy. Why didn't I know it was Louis Bogan? I'm very upset.
Brilliant. Okay, and then that storyline then led onto a typical Grange Hill sort of far-fetched storyline where the St. Joe's lads came and stole the cup, and the lads knew that the St. Joe's lads had taken it, and rather than saying to their teachers, look, they've got it, the lads, there was all these missions then of going to St. Joseph's and getting the cup back. And Max didn't really want to be involved again. He was always the sensible one in the crew. And they caught one of the St. Joseph lads, and they cornered him and threw him up against the wall, and Max didn't want to be involved. Now, it just seems strange that Max didn't, but Adam was quite happily involved in all that. And I know Adam had his own issues and was easily led and stuff like, but the lads went to the meeting place. St. Joe's appeared, but there was loads of them. And Max was the first to do a runner, to be honest. And they ended up getting the trophy back. Don't you remember that? With Ben actually broke into the lad's house or sneaked in because Zoe knocked on the front door and said she was the lad's, Nigel, his name was Nigel's girlfriend, and he dumped her. But as I say, they ended up getting the trophy back and all was good. And they needed a way to get the trophy back into school. And Max was integral to this. I don't know if you remember this. They used...
He put it in the case.
There you go.
Yes, I remember. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They put it back in the tuba case, and they left it in Mr. Robson's office.
Yeah.
And that was like sort of the end of series 22 for you, because as I say, you were only in about 8 episodes. So there we go. So then the next series 23, was mainly sort of about Adam and his dad. This one was all like Adam had been estranged from his dad because, as I say, we found out his mum had been killed and his dad had done it. So it was all mainly about that. But they did have a new arrival in Miss Fraser, played by Judith Wright.
Was she Australian?
She was Australian.
Yeah.
And all the lads fancied Miss Fraser.
Absolutely. Come on now.
And another bet that you've said was later on, where his sister came to the school, and the lads had a bet about who could get inside Miss Wright's house.
Lovely.
First of all, because there'd also been at that time, there was the racist attack that Spencer's dad had committed. The viewers knew who'd done it. Spencer knew that his dad had done it, but no one else knew. So the lads wanted to protect Max, and they went everywhere with him. And Max was saying, "Look, you suffocate me. You need to leave me alone." But they were just looking out for their mate, weren't they? They were just looking out for him. And like we said, there'd been the bet. They were all making a fuss of Katie, Miss Wright's sister, just to try and get to the house. And at one point, Katie has a chat with Max, and she says to him about, "Oh, do you want to come round? You play the tuba. Come round to my house, because I'm trying to get Emily into jazz and she won't listen to it. But if you come round and listen to it." And Max says no, and the other lads just can't believe it. And they ask him why he'd said no, and I don't know if you can remember the reason why he wouldn't go round, because it's a cracking line. When he said no because he had to polish his tuba. Which is brilliant. And carrying on with the Australian theme, they had to make boomerangs for science. And the lads weren't happy because they were talking about how Katie's would be better than everyone because she was so good at everything and she was Australian. It was an unfair advantage. And when it came to the lesson where they had to throw them, Max threw it towards the school, just as Mr. Hankins said, "Don't throw it towards the school." And it didn't come back. And Mr. Hankins said, "Go and get it." And Max said, "It'll come back. It's a boomerang. It's going to come back eventually." and to be fair, it did come back eventually. Just as the Ofsted inspector, Mr. Forbes, was about to leave the school, it did come back and it landed in the boot of his car. And there's a bit where they went on, like, they did a camping weekend. Katie had said they should do a walkabout. Don't know if you remember that one, an actual camping weekend. So just the 5 of them went on that one because Katie invited Adam and she invited the lads, and the lads weren't getting on with Adam at that time because he'd broken Franco's leg playing football.
Yeah.
And they said they were all going, or word would get round that some of them had chickened out camping out in the woods. So they all went.
Wow.
And the lads built a bivouac for Adam, which easily fell over and had a hole in the ground. And when Adam got out to the hole in the ground, they saw bones in the ground. Don't know if you remember that. Just like a pile of bones, and they all obviously freaked out. And so they decided to go and ring the police. But it turns out it was just a sheep's skeleton because they found the skull going with it. And then Katie then on this weekend talking about Aborigine culture. And Max even made a didgeridoo out of a pipe. And they all got their face painted Aboriginal.
I was going to say, didn't we paint our faces?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you get stuff like that, it must be great to, like, be in a different environment and not be in the school environment when you're out on location?
Oh, I love location stuff. Oh, I truly loved it. Location stuff tended to be during the summer holidays, so you
Right.
didn't have to do your tutoring.
Uh-huh.
So because we have to do 3 hours of tutoring every day if you're under 16. And I love the location stuff.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was just great. It is like you're camping. It is like you're in some sort of amazing, I don't know, scouts,
Yeah.
hub, whatever you want to call it. It was amazing, truly.
Yeah, brilliant. And they also thought they'd seen a kangaroo,
Yeah, I remember that.
which turned out to be a wallaby. Now, was the wallaby actually there? Was the wallaby actually with you when you were filming? Because I know in the past they've used like, stock footage of
I think
animals.
they use stock footage.
Right.
I think they use stock footage. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Okay. And then later on in that series, there was a homeless awareness campaign where they were all collecting cardboard boxes because they thought that someone in the school, I think it was Wayne, thought if they collected a load of cardboard boxes, they could get the recycling centre to pay for them, and they would make a load of money for homelessness and all this. So each year they had a competition each year, seeing if they could collect the most cardboard boxes, which then turned into all sorts of subterfuge and shenanigans with people stealing cardboard boxes that have been promised to other people. So sort of like from like Anika's mum's shop, they broke in and stole them, and then there was a big argument about the cardboard boxes getting nicked between all the year groups, which almost turned into a full-blown food fight until Mr. Hankin stopped. And so they said they need to sort it out. And there's almost like a war council in the Archers in Ray's Caff. And obviously Ray was played by Kelly George, an absolute legend of Grange Hill. Yeah. But I'm also told he's not just a legend of Grange Hill, he's just a legend in his own right. I've messaged him a few times, and we are trying to sort of time to get him on. But everyone just says as well, just what an absolute legend Kelly George is.
I remember meeting Kelly, and I remember I was about 9 when I first met him. He had blonde hair, and I thought, wow, that's so cool. I remember telling him, oh, you remind me of Dennis Wise, the football player, Dennis Wise that played for Chelsea. I remember telling him that. Yeah. He made a joke about, no, because I think he was an Arsenal fan as well.
Right.
Or something. And he was just really, really sweet. I think being so young and the cute, chubby kid made the older guys and girls just think, oh, he's so sweet. They were just lovely. And also his face was very recognizable. So if you would, whether or not you watched Grange Hill, you would have seen his face at some point during the years he was on it, because he just seemed to be on it through the school years.
Yeah, it was a long time.
All the way through to sixth form, and I just remember thinking, oh wow, there's Ray, and lovely guy. Yeah,
brilliant. Now, you just mentioned it there, and you mentioned a few times about being a chubby kid. But by the time this series was on, series 23, puberty had hit, hadn't it? Because you look sort of very physically different in that series, I think, than you had done beforehand. Because when I was watching sort of when I was going back and researching, and I was watching your first series, I was like, is that actually him? Because he looks so different. Whereas I've kept this chubby face my whole life, so I don't look any different to when I was a kid.
The costume lady introduced herself to me. So are we on season 3 now, or season 4?
Yeah, your third series. Yeah.
She came over and introduced herself to me. I went, Janine, it's me. What are you doing? She was like, oh my God, Michael! I didn't recognize you. And it really was the theme of the year. I remember everybody was like, and let me tell you something right now, I'll be honest with you. This is when there was no asking girls out who told me they had a book. I'll be totally honest with you.
Brilliant.
I never asked a girl out again. I'm being totally honest.
Wow. Tremendous.
Nothing was the same.
Tremendous.
I really mean it.
Tremendous. And as you say, at the end of that year, they realised they weren't going to get any money, so they had a big bonfire. And you've mentioned Linford Christie. already. Like, and that, as I say, that must have been an amazing thing just to meet Linford Christie as well.
The fastest man on
Yeah.
earth. I mean, you know, he was at the time, he was still the fastest man on earth.
Yeah.
It was heroic. It was heroic. It was really,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant.
I went on to meet him a few more times after that. And my cousin actually won Olympic gold, Team GB, and so he was her coach. And
wow.
Yeah. It was amazing. But yeah, that was cool.
Was tremendous. Okay, so we move on then. Series 24 went out 2001, and Max is in year 10 by this point, and Max and Ben were determined to get girlfriends in this year. Max had tried to ask Leah out. Obviously, you mentioned Leah, you mentioned Jess earlier. Was that weird though? Like, sort of having that on-screen relationship?
Do you know, I think Grange Hill, for me, I feel like I noticed it amongst other people too, but for me, it made me get on really well with girls.
Right.
And vice versa. We all just got on so well. It was just so lovely. Never felt weird, never felt awkward. You know, I'm pretty sure I had a crush on her. And to be honest with you, I think she had a crush on me too.
It's okay.
But that was fine. I think me thinking she did and me knowing I did towards her, I loved her. I would say I think we might have loved each other. We probably did. We just used to honestly, we were just so, it wasn't weird at all. It was lovely. It was really nice.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, and like you say, he tries asking Leah out, it doesn't work. So then they try asking Shannon out. And then they started asking
Hanin, Amanda, yeah.
And then Tracy and Lisa, even though they were older, they tried asking them out. And they just saw they just kept falling down, whatever they tried to do. And then there's a bit where Max and Ben went to buy something from Ozzy, Kieran, who was known for dealing cigarettes. And it's a really shady scene. There's a deal going down in the boiler room, and you don't know what they're getting. You think, what have these two got themselves into here? And it just turns out it was just breath freshener. And I love that, because you do think, what are these two doing here? Because like Ozzy was such a bad lad, and then it's just breath. Let's try out the merchandise, and it was just breath freshener. And Max and Ben were actually invited round to a party. Shannon invited them to the party at Lisa's house. But when they get there, they found it wasn't really a big party at all, and they were just going to be watching videos. And you'll have to help me out with this, because Lisa asks Ben to pick a video. Now, me and my wife will watch this bit several times to try and figure out what Ben actually says, because the video, the title of the video that he actually sounds like, he says, I've wanted to see Encounter Jane by the back door for ages. Lovely. And we were like, what? Encounter Jane by the back door. I refused to Google it just because I didn't know what I was going to get, to see. But yeah, Encounter Jane by the back. Is that what it was called?
Do you know what? I genuinely don't remember that exchange, but I can tell you, I'm almost certain that was a hiding in plain sight piece of cheekiness by the writers. Listen, I watch kids stuff all the time because I have a daughter now, and I do loads. I voice loads of cartoons and do all that kind of stuff. People sneak things in. Sneak things in. They leave these little Easter eggs, and so I think that's what it was. So listen, if you want to Google it, prepare, man.
Brilliant. And in the end of that party, Lisa's dad came in. Lisa was drunk, broke the party up, and again, Max and Ben got nowhere again.
That was a really fun day. I remember that because I remember Lisa, her character was originally in the Double Dare gang. And I remember they might have joined a year or two before I joined. They were cool. Like, I remember seeing them at the first read through and thinking, oh my God, there's a Double Dare gang. Wow. And they were really, really cool. And they were really close. I remember they had their own slang and their own games. And one day I'll sit down and tell you some funny anecdotes about stuff with them. They were really creative. They used to play all sorts of pranks on like the newbies, and
Yeah.
most amazing, elaborate pranks. Yeah, they were cool.
So they were just like the Double Dare Gang.
They were really, really cool. I kind of wanted to be like them. You know,
Yeah.
they were amazing. I think maybe some of those guys, I think I looked at and thought, yeah, they're going to be all big stars. And I mean,
Yeah.
look, you know, people go on to do all sorts after Grange Hill. We're kids, so some people never wanted to be an actor. You know, some people, you know, it's just something, you know, it was a hobby, or
Yeah.
maybe their parents were living vicariously through them, or maybe they just realized it wasn't for them. So, you know, there's all sorts of reasons. You're so young, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. And there is a bit where Max asks Miss Fraser for a word in private. Like, you think, what's this? And then the next scene is just Miss Fraser saying she didn't think he'd be interested in that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, don't tell. It's something I'd have a go at, but don't tell me mates just yet." And the next scene, Max tells Shannon he's thinking of putting his name down for the talent show, and she says, "Oh, is that what you were talking to Miss Fraser about?" And he says, "Yeah, it was, but maybe it wasn't." And in that, one of the builders hears Max talking about this and says, "Oh, do you play the tuba there?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "Can you come and help me out?" And what he wants them to do was play Happy Birthday for Frankie, the builder. I don't know if you remember that one. And that was another like underground, like in the boiler room scene. And Miss Fraser was wearing a cheerleader costume. Do you remember that? They came out of the and she came out of the cake. It was Frankie's birthday. He was the boss of the builders. And Max is there playing Happy Birthday. Could you play Happy Birthday on the tuba at this point? Or was that added on?
Right, no, okay. That was completely, I remember that was completely mimed. Right. I do remember the cheerleader cake thing. Oh yeah, we all had a crush on it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. And then we then found out what Max had actually spoke to Miss Fraser about. He had been designing a new school uniform or new school PE kits, and he won the competition.
Yes.
But he wasn't happy because there was all sorts of big logos over it. Right. And he sort of waged a campaign then about he came into school with a sandwich board of "I am not an advert" and stuff like that. You know, he was getting kids to shout "We are not for sale" and making mannequins and things. And then it turned out they had a bit of it because obviously Ben's younger brother Martin was a bit of a computer whiz and stuff. And they found out that Mr. Forbes, who was the Ofsted inspector, had done things like this at most of the schools he'd inspected. And he'd had building works applied for and stuff. And the builders were giving him, he was getting kickbacks from all these companies. And there was a band coming into the school called 19 Down, who also were giving Mr. Forbes kickbacks as well. And like I say, they find out that all was happening. In the end, Mr. Forbes was sort of handed over to the police because he was taking bribes and doing all these things that he shouldn't have been doing, basically. And then that moved on then to series 25. Max is in year 11, and it was your final year. And it was when Max was involved with the school website. Mm-hmm. And Leah had asked him to be involved with the school website because he was good at designs. He was good at design and stuff. He was good at art, but he wasn't really good with computers. So Martin was doing all that side of it. And there was Mr. Jones came in to see what they'd done, but he came in on his own and wiped everything that they'd done and then rang in sick the next day. But they all shouted. They all kicked off at Martin, but it hadn't been him. And in the end, they realised, they apologised the way Grange Hill does. Now, this is the year where Mr. Deverell was involved. And you were saying earlier on about, by this point, Grange Hill wasn't the same programme that it had been earlier in sort of in the 70s and 80s. But I love this storyline, the Mr. Deverell storyline. I think it was a really, really good one and a really, really clever one. And I do think it's one of the best that they did, because Mr. Deverell came as the deputy head, and he came in and he ruled with an iron fist. Mr. Robson had been off sick and had said he was going to retire and all this. And Mr. Deverell was just horrible to everyone. regardless of whether he were a nice kid, whether he were a bad kid. He wasn't a nice character, was. And Ian had been banned from the football team. And Max and Ben said, look, you need to apologise for this. Because at this point, Max was on the football team as well. He wasn't originally.
Not originally, no.
Were you any good at football?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So that must have hurt earlier on as well when
you know what?
When Max wasn't on the team.
I was annoyed. So I remember I used to say to myself, listen, this is great. You're acting. You're going against life. You're going against...
Brilliant. So Ian did go and apologise to Mr. Devil, who said, the team probably do need you, to be honest. But then he changed his mind again when they were going to the tournament. And when they went to the tournament, the lads from another school spoke to Max and Ben and said, that teacher there looks like a teacher we used to have, a Mr. Wilcox. And they were like, well, we haven't got a Mr. Wilcox. And then Martin then told Max and Ben that the school that the lads had spoken to, Mr. Devil had used to teach at, because he told them that on his first day when he was showing them round. So Max and Ben then decided to infiltrate the other school, the posh boys' school, and they told them about Mr. Devil. They told them that Mr. Wilcox was a teacher who'd hit one of the lads that they'd seen, and had been sacked, and he was told he would never teach again. And then they said, oh, well, he's called Mr. Devil. He went, oh, yeah, there was a Mr. Devil here. He's left to go traveling the world. And they start putting two and two together then. And Mr. Wilcox had assumed Mr. Devil's identity. And Max says, like James Bond, this, isn't it? Max and Ben got into his office and found his wallet and found that he had cards in Devil's name and in Wilcox's name. And that day, Mr. Devil had been given the job of headmaster. And they got Kathy to put a thing on the website. And it was the day of Mr. Robson and Miss Carver's wedding, which took place in the school for some bizarre reason. And it does, and I know it had to for the purposes of the storyline, but it just, you are there 5 days a week, 41 weeks in a year with all these kids. You don't want to have your wedding in the school. You certainly don't want all them kids there. But anyway, so
it's cost effective.
Yeah. Ian says to Mr. Devil, do you want your profile on the website to be under D or W? And he's saying, what you're on about? And he says, well, Devil or Wilcox. And then he realizes then what's happened. And they get him locked in the room. The lad from the other school comes. And Mr. Robson doesn't believe any of this until he says to this lad from the school, I should have hit you harder. And then he realized they lock him in like the reform room, as they were calling it. But he manages to get out. And then he sets fire to the school. And there's a big fire, big explosion. Now, we never actually found out what happened to Max. What do you think happened to Max?
That's a great question. The mad thing is, I've never ever thought, oh, whatever became of Max. All I know is that the show moved to Liverpool. And apparently, whoever made the decision about who's going had watched an episode and based his decision off that episode.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently so. And chose a selection of the characters from that episode to go up, and then I'm pretty sure they introduced new characters when it went up there, and that was it. That was it. That was the end of the journey.
And how did you feel about not being in it?
I was oh man, I remember it was a strange crossroads because I was about 14. I remember that year I got expelled from school.
Wow.
From my real school. So I think I felt lost.
Yeah.
I felt lost. I remember thinking, God, oh man, this has just been my bubble.
Yeah.
This is my security blanket. I was a really good student. I did really well at school. I'll be totally honest with you, I found academics incredibly easy. I feel like a lot of it was to do with memory. I had an amazing memory from just sense memory, lines, photographic sort of memory thing, and also just intelligent, clever guy, clever kid. So I did really, really well. I didn't find it hard to juggle it, but I know I didn't want to be in school. I do
Right.
remember I never wanted to be in school. I didn't like it. I remember very, very early on, I was like, this life I'm living now, this is the only life I want to live. This is
Yeah.
the only life I want to live. I feel really, really lucky.
Yeah.
I never felt better than anybody. I felt special in that I've been given this special opportunity.
Yeah.
Therefore, I am really, really lucky. And I really felt like all of us on that show were on this amazing island. Because you remember as well, in and around that time, somewhere in the 90s, Harry Potter was starting. I remember they came to my drama class
Right.
to pick actors, and I couldn't audition for it because it ran across the film time for Grange Hill. So I remember that was starting to happen as well. We had our own life, and going to Elstree and seeing all the stars come for Top of the Pops, and seeing all the characters in EastEnders. EastEnders was enormous at the time, and I saw Spice Girls and Destiny's Child, and I remember seeing Puff Daddy when he was called Puff Daddy walking by. On Mel B. I remember just seeing all, and this was my watch. So I just remember thinking, oh, is this not going to happen anymore? And then I remember we had some sort of party to say goodbye to Grange Hill. It's moving up to Liverpool because it all ended sort of up in the air.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a year after we'd all seen each other. And I didn't want to tell anybody I'd been expelled. I was embarrassed because I felt like I was some sort of favorite there in terms of the chaperones loved me. I remember times, June and Joan, the chaperones, they would say, be a bit more like Michael. And they would use me as an example. And I thought, wow, and it made me so happy. And I just thought if they knew I was expelled, they would be disappointed in me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I was living multiple lives. The way I was in Grange Hill, every day on set, being driven to set, doing tutoring, I was a different person to how I was in my normal secondary school.
Right.
It was like a split personality because Grange Hill was my happy place. That was me. And I loved the fact, and I was very, very aware from a very young age of toxic masculinity. I was very, very aware from a very young age of being lucky as a male, being able to express how I feel. I've always been a very emotional person. My emotions have always been readily available from my personality. And of course, that snowballed because I'm an actor. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Like if anybody ever said to me, God, you're so this or you're so dramatic, I would think, oh, they just don't understand what it is. Because obviously you don't want to keep making excuses and stuff, but you are, at that age, you are different doing these type of things and telling these stories. And, it's different. Some of it you just do by instinct, but I was aware of what I was doing too, So at school it was different. And of course, I went to an incredibly rough school. Not of course, but I went to a very rough school. And of course it's difficult anyway. I was very famous. I was a famous guy, and I'm a child. And people didn't like it.
Right.
The teachers were the worst. They hated me. The students, but you see me, I wasn't a victim.
Right.
And whoever was bad in the school, I was badder.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's something I look back on now and I go, yeah, this is what I did for survival. If you say, you're in Grange Hill's crap, you'd get punched.
Yeah.
I would punch you.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't get bullied. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember, and that all started from I remember being 11 years old and walking down the corridor, and my head of year saying to me, Michael, why are you smiling? The cameras aren't rolling now. And I was 11 years old, and I was absolutely devastated. So I remember sitting down in the corner, and I said to myself, the next person that says that to me, I remember actually, I even muttered it to myself, will regret it. They will pay. And subsequently, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Never. And then it actually got to a point where actually people were scared to even say anything to me.
Yeah. Wow.
And it seemed to be the best way because I remember we would come to filming. We'd film maybe 6 months a year at Grange Hill. A lot of the kids left school, normal school, and went to a stage school because if they didn't go to a stage school already, because they were getting bullied. I remember it was a thing. And I remember thinking, well, we're not going to go to a stage school. We can't afford it as a family if there's anything to pay. And I was a bit of a breadwinner as well. I started becoming a bit so I went to a normal school. And that's something, maybe I would change that going back, but it made me who I am today. And I found the way to survive it is to fight. And that's what I did. And so I just remember being, it eventually led to my expulsion. And I remember that coincided with me no longer being in Grange Hill. And I remember going through a period. It was my first identity crisis, which is scary because I think you get that anyway, puberty, your adolescence, being a teenager anyway. But I felt like I knew who I was. I was this, so I did, and now I suddenly wasn't, and I wasn't even in school anymore. So it was weird. I was upset. I thought if I was going with Grange Hill to Liverpool, everything would be okay. That's how I felt at the time.
Yeah. Oh, that must have been a shocker, but it was, as you say, it was your defense mechanism, wasn't it? Just your way of getting through it. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so let's just say then that Max did survive the fire. Okay, so every time I put an episode of the podcast out, I put picture clues on social media for people to guess who the guest is going to be.
Great.
And the person who guesses first gets to ask a question. Okay, gets to ask a question in the next podcast. So the question for your episode, for your podcast, is coming from someone, and I can't remember their exact name on Twitter, but it's Secret Squirrel. I apologize for not getting your full Twitter handle in there. So the question is, let's say Max did survive the fire. What do you think Max would be doing today?
Wow. You know, talking to you, it makes me feel like he would work in design.
Right.
When I'm thinking back to, I remember all that school uniform stuff. I remember that whole placard stuff and the sandwich board. I remember all that kind of thing. I feel like he had kind of leadership qualities as time went on. Yeah, he would probably be working in the design field. Yeah. You know, I've had times when I thought I could even see him being a teacher, maybe some sort of, I don't know. Something like that.
Brilliant. Okay, so we really, if we can, Michael, just talk a little bit about what you've done sort of since Grange Hill, because I looked on IMDb and you've got quite the CV on IMDb. I know it's not the most reliable of sources, and I always say that every time I'm on here. But you know, most of the stuff is on there. So, from the time you left Grange Hill, you did things like Doctors and the Bill and
all the usual suspect stuff. Yeah.
Holby. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like it is a proper sort of British show reel that you've got there. Like, and then you know you moved on, and I wanted to talk about My Family. I did an episode of My Family, and just because that must have been an absolute ball. My Family with Zoe Wanamaker and
what a blast! What a blast! What a blast! You just look back and you just remember how young you are and how much you take stuff in your stride. So I can give you a couple of anecdotes about that. I mean, so for instance, even just reminds me, like in Grange Hill, I remember when I did a scene, one of my first days on Grange Hill. Sorry to jump back, but they said to me, one of the crew members came to me afterwards, after they shot cut, and said, Michael, you know, next time for this scene, can you just give us a bit more level? I went, okay, no problem. I did the scene again. Afterwards, cut. Michael, you need to give more level. Did the scene again. Michael, you're really not giving me enough level. I said, look, I don't know what to do. I've done 3 takes on my tiptoes. What do you want me to do? And he looked at me and he went, oh, and he gave me the biggest hug in the world. He said, no, I meant level audio-wise. You need to talk louder. I thought he meant you need to be physically higher. So I did the scene on my tiptoes. Nobody told me not to do it on my tiptoes. I just carried on, walking like I'm crazy, like I'm wearing. So you just think back. So and when you mentioned My Family, I mean, I was 16 when I did My Family.
Right.
Because I started Grange Hill so young that I haven't done it for 5 years. I'm still only 14.
Yeah.
So I did Doctors at 15. I think my dad had to be my chaperone.
Right.
I did My Family when I was 16. And of course I knew who Zoe Wanamaker was and Robert Lindsay, you know, but I'm 16. I'm not starstruck anymore. You take everything in your stride and you just do it. And we filmed it in front of a live studio audience.
Right.
And it was incredible. It was a mix of theater and TV, basically. And I truly loved it. You know what? I would love to do a sitcom again. I'd love to do a sitcom on a regular basis. That would be fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I'll be honest, I did read up on your character in My Family, and he had the hots for Zoe Wanamaker.
I did. Yep.
And fair enough, fair play, you know, absolutely. As well. Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, and then we'll move on then. So I don't know if you want to call it your biggest part after Grange Hill was Hotel Babylon was certainly like a big thing there, and you were in every episode of Hotel Babylon, and I mean only 3 cast members were in every episode, so Dexter Fletcher and Martin Marquez as well. You played Ben Truman in Hotel Babylon, and along with Emma Pearson, could play Becky Radcliffe in Grange Hill as well.
Do you know when we got to Grange? I didn't know she was on Grange Hill.
Right.
I didn't even know. I was like, what? And then I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember crossing paths with you on the show.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
Now, I have to ask you about that because I've read that when you started filming Hotel Babylon, you were actually in theatre at the same time.
Yeah.
And they must have been horrendous days. Great days as well. But they must have been really grueling days.
They
doing
were
all that.
They were grueling. But the hardest thing about it was the fact that I was playing a criminalized teenager in the evening.
Right.
But by day playing a gay hotel receptionist.
Yeah.
So they used to pick me up from home. We'd film in Aston Clinton. I'd camp it up, and then they'd drive me to the West End, and I'd be a criminalized teenager from Hackney. And you know what? Like I said to you, this was the life I wanted to live. Then, that's all I wanted to do. And you know what? It was an obsession.
Yeah.
And it probably became too much.
Right.
It probably became too much of an obsession. Such an obsession that truly nothing else mattered to me. And I really mean nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we first did Hotel Babylon, we did the read-through. The day we did the read-through was the day of the 7/7 bombings in London.
Wow.
And where were the bombings? Well, one of the bombings went off in Edgware Road. Where was our read-through? At the Landmark Hotel in Edgware Road.
Oh, wow.
And I remember we heard it. I thought it was roadworks. We all had to go into the gym under the hotel and take cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We all had to take cover during the read-through. I don't think we finished the read-through. And I remember they couldn't get us home because it was a night. And I remember walking home from Edgware Road to Golders Green, where I lived at the time. And you know what I was saying to myself on the way home? I was saying to myself, listen, if it's going to be World War III, let it be after Hotel Babylon come out. And I am not joking. I promise you now, I am 0% exaggerating. I was repeating that mantra to myself all the way home. I said, listen, we're all going to die. I think that's clear to see.
Yeah.
Please let my TV show come out and then we can all pop off. It's okay.
Wow.
It's been a good life. And I'm not joking. That's how pathological it became. I was 18 by this time.
Wow.
And that was my world. That was my life. Nothing else. Nothing. Friends, nothing. Nothing.
No. Just wow. How'd you get over that?
I didn't. I haven't.
Right.
I haven't gotten over it. It's something you have to manage.
Right.
And I think it's something you have to be honest about and acknowledge as soon as you can. I knew I was this way from about 14 or 15. I knew what was happening to me. I looked at my friends who were around my age. I looked at my friends who were a bit older, and I didn't want to be like anyone. I didn't want to be like any of them. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I had 0% FOMO. This was all I wanted to do.
Right.
And I felt incredibly privileged. Never once did I think, you guys are beneath me. I just thought, I am the luckiest human being on earth. And I have to keep doing what I can to deserve this.
Yeah.
So if I'm exhausted, I'm working hard. If I'm filming during the day and on stage during the night, I'm working hard. And that was all that mattered. And let me tell you something now. My friends and my family saw this. They felt it. I know this.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay. Talk about Hotel Babylon, and you did the well-trodden path from Grange Hill to EastEnders as well. You did a few bits of EastEnders. You did the Doctor Who. And you were in Misfits.
Yes, I was.
Did you have any superpowers in that?
No.
No.
Which deeply saddened me. Yeah, I think I played a detective on that, and I was the only guy who didn't have superpowers. That was amazing. That was cool, you know. I remember when we were filming it, I wasn't quite sure about it because I think it was quite low budget, especially the first few series. But I remember when it came out, we were all like, wow, this is special. And if you look at what pretty much all the actors have gone on to do, and the directors as well, an amazing group of actors. Yeah, that was that was quite ahead of its time, I thought.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and then you moved on to Casualty as well, where you played Lloyd, a nurse, and you were with Amanda Mealing in that, who what a legend she is. But again, another Grange Hill alumni as well.
But she would go back and forth between Holby and Casualty. So whenever she was in Casualty, we never crossed paths.
Right.
So I've never met Amanda.
Oh, have you not? No, wow. I didn't
realize. No, I don't know.
Oh, I want to know if you were at the end of a Connie stare, you see. But obviously not. If you're not, not that. No, I needed to ask you here about Snatch, the television series of Snatch, because I love the movie of Snatch. But I was not aware, genuinely, until I read your CV, that there'd been a TV series of Snatch. And obviously, like Rupert Grint, Mark Warren, who was turned up in Grange Hill for a few episodes, but like
Stephanie Leonardis, who was an extra in Grange Hill, and her brother Shane was one of the regular characters.
Yeah, he played Josh. Was it? Did he play Josh?
Yes,
yeah. Tama Hassan, Dougray Scott, and Lucian Laviscount, who also turned up in Grange Hill when it moved north as well. Yeah, and then just moving on a little bit more, I need to ask you about Robozuna. Can you explain what Robozuna is?
Robozuna is about this boy who has this robot that he enters into these kind of like fighting games. It's like Robot Wars, basically. Yeah. It's really good. Yeah. It's really, really good. It's an American cartoon on Netflix. And I voice a couple of the characters. I voice Chike, and I play his dad as well. Right. And brilliant. Let me tell you, all the actors, any actors listening to this, get yourself into voiceovers and try and do animation, because it is the best. It's incredible. It's so fun.
Brilliant. And you've also, speaking of that, you've done Kitty Cats as well. You've the voice on there, but I do want to talk to you because I know you've done, you've branched out into writing and directing as well. And you've done a couple of bits like Superstar and Carl Marcus. Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
So I ask people this who do the writing, when you write stuff like that, are you writing those parts for yourself? Is it you saying, right, I am doing this bit?
100%. But I tell you what's really interesting is when you write something and you're not writing it for yourself, because I've written a TV series and we're going to try and get that made. And I may be in it, but I never originally wrote it for me to be in it.
Wow, right, okay.
And I think that made it better. Me writing it without myself in mind made it better, or at least a better experience, because you can write more freely. You have more of an aerial view. And I found myself loving all the characters and caring for all the characters equally, and seeing myself in all the, and when I say see, I'm in the female character, it doesn't matter to me. I could see myself in all the characters. So it's a more enjoyable experience from my perspective when I'm writing, not imagining myself in it.
Right, okay. Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. Because I always say, when you're acting and writing and directing, is it just because you're going to get 3 wages?
Listen, this game is so insane. You dream of parts, and sometimes you think maybe those parts aren't going to come your way. So you say, listen, I'm going to pick up a pen and write. And that's what some of the best writers, that's how they started, or even some of your favorite actors, that's why. It's a very American model, getting into producing and making your own work,
Brilliant. And then we talked about Snatch being the series from a movie, but you're also in the series of Sexy Beast, which is the, was it Ray Winston? Was he in the film?
Yeah. Have you seen the movie?
No, do you know what? It's one of those ones I've caught bits of, but never actually seen all of it. And is that on at the moment, or is it being?
It's on at the moment, yeah. Paramount Plus, yeah.
So you played Dutch in that one as well.
A porn star.
All right, okay, fair enough. Did you have to do much research into that one?
Yeah. And it's very difficult because you have to pace yourself.
Yeah. Brilliant. So we talked about your writing, but you also not just writing films. You've written books.
I've written 2 novels
as well. Yeah. How does that come about then?
The first one, Black Shoes, started out as a script,
Right.
And I wrote that. I started writing that when I was about 19.
Right.
Maybe it came out when I was 22 or something.
Uh-huh.
And I remember just in that 3-year period writing it and trying to get it made. And I was in Hotel Babylon at the time. And
Right.
it was the first time when I realized having a profile really, really helps, because
Right.
I couldn't imagine the people that were taking meetings with me.
Yeah.
Meetings that would probably be hard to get now, you know, off the back of Hotel Babylon, which was amazing. And in the end, it wasn't going in the direction I wanted it to. We're really struggling. So I just started readapting it into a book.
Oh, right. Okay.
I love books. I've always read books. I read 2 books at the same time. I think I read a book. I read a book every day, I think. I'm never not sort of. So it just came naturally to me. Loved it as a book.
Yeah.
Got published. So yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's marvelous. Okay. Well, Michael, we are coming towards the end of the interview now, and I'm going to end with the same 5 questions that I always end every episode with, and they're all Grange Hill related.
Cool.
Okay. So there's been talk recently of a Grange Hill movie in the works. Phil Redmond, is writing a. Kellen Jones, who was in Grange Hill, is involved, and Sarah Sugarman, who's in Grange Hill, is going to be directing it. What do you think of the idea of a Grange Hill movie?
I think it's fantastic.
Brilliant.
I think it's an absolutely wonderful idea. I think Grange Hill is the most iconic school show in the history of Britain.
Uh-huh.
I think it changed the game. It opened doors for so many people, such an important part of people's lives at a time when there's none of this streaming stuff going on, when you're getting millions of people. And it's a beautiful thing because they're all watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what we miss today. We miss that sense of community where we're saying, oh my gosh, everyone's watching this, and you talk about it every day. Everybody's talking about the next day at school.
Yeah.
Now it's a watch along, it's a tweet along, social. People are watching everything on their own time, and also as well, it's more disposable now because there are just so many avenues. Things from back then aren't disposable. There's no show that we're watching now we're going to be talking about in 10, 20 years time. That's just not how we consume media anymore. That's fine. That's just the way it's gone. But there isn't that. So Grange Hill is a product of its time.
Yeah.
So I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea. I hope it's marketed properly. I think if it's put together properly, people are going to be very, very excited. Honestly, I truly believe that. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. And if you were asked, would we see a return of Max Abassi, or even the ghost of Max Abassi if he didn't survive the fire? Would we see a return?
If they were to write a sensible storyline for him, a good storyline for him, without a shadow of a doubt.
Brilliant.
Without a shadow of a doubt, I would do it. I can tell you now, hand on heart. I would say now, the last few years, I look back on things like that, and I'm so proud to have been involved. I feel truly, truly privileged to have been involved in that. And I think there's a thing amongst actors where maybe sometimes one doesn't want to look back and you want to move forward and you want to move on to the next thing. And I get that. And I would say that was probably part of my attitude for a long time.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just sit back. Maybe it's being a dad. Maybe it's what we all went through during the pandemic or over the last, I don't know. And I just go, you know what? What a ride. What a ride. It's something I would never want to erase from my history. And I would absolutely be involved if everybody behaved properly.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So then, other than Max Abassi, who was your favourite character in Grange Hill?
That was a great question. Well, look, I know that I remember before I joined it, I can't remember his character, but I remember knowing Sean Maguire was a big star.
Tegs, yeah.
I remember, but I don't even know who he played. But I just remember his name and always seeing his image. I remember there was a guy who was in a wheelchair in Grange Hill.
Dennis, Alan Cave. Dennis,
him. I remember he was cool. I remember thinking, oh, he's cool. And I remember there was a guy who was at Grange Hill who he was involved in that storyline where Judy fell from the balcony, and you've got Wayne Sutcliffe, and he was like a bad guy.
Alec.
He kind of looked like Tom Cruise.
Right, okay.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. So there was Alec, played by Tommy Carey.
It was him.
Yeah.
Was it Tom? But no, but he had a London accent. There was another guy who had
the Scottish fella.
Yeah, not him. Not the Scottish guy.
Yes, that was Sean.
So that was the Scottish guy was Sean, right?
It was Sean, and Alec was the other fella, yeah.
Alec. I think I thought he was cool. Right. And I remember one time I was sitting down knackered, and it was around the time I was filming all the stuff where they stole my tuba and they threw it in the canal. And I remember him saying to me, "Oh, you must be really tired. You're doing a great job." I remember him saying that to me.
Wow.
I was about maybe 10 or 11, and maybe he was, I don't know, 19. But, he seemed like such a man at that age. I remember thinking, and he was I remember him just always being really, really nice to me. Yeah. And I just thought he looked cool. And, maybe if I'm in the sixth form, I could try and be like him or something.
Yeah, brilliant. So then you mentioned this very, very early on about the audition that you went for. But if you couldn't have played Max, was there another character then that you would have liked to have played?
No.
Right. No.
I think I remember when the season went on, and I would see Ian's character develop. And it's acting, so you do it. But I think I was happy that I wasn't playing a bully. I think so. I'm sure if I was playing a bully, I would have loved it and ran with it. But I think there was a part of me that was like, oh, this is cool. Because the character was very different to how I was at school.
Right.
Yeah. So how real the character at school, my real school was, I'm sure some of it was my personality. But like I said, a lot of it was survival. So I was really, I was a very, very tough guy at school. But my character in Grange Hill was not. Yeah. And I loved that duality. I loved it.
Brilliant. Okay, then. So the final question, Michael, is why do you think then there is still such affection for Grange Hill?
Well, for everything I said about it being something that we would all watch at the same time, it was ahead of its time. There was nothing like it on at that time. I think that the kids were really talented. I mean, maybe I'm not sure how well it's aged if you watch it back, but I just remember thinking it looked like a school. It looked like Grange Hill was the nation's school. Kids would watch it and probably feel like it was another school. They would come home from school and go to their other school, you know, and you're part of that. You're making memories for them. And also as well, quite a few people from Grange Hill went on to have a career, you know? So there's that kind of thing of you see people grow. And I think some people kind of like that. I think there's nothing like it now, but then at the same time, I do remember when Waterloo Road came out, and there was something called Hope and Glory a few years before Lenny Henry. So they definitely had some goes at other schools, other school shows, but Grange Hill is the original. You know, it's the thing that would always be compared to. You know, there was Biker Grove and all that kind of stuff, but it's Grange Hill, man. It was, you know, I just think it was the timing. I don't think it's not possible to have a moment like that again. You know, you could do something and it would be a big show and it would be the buzzword for 5 days, and then we'll move on to the other hashtag. You know. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on. It has been a brilliant talking to you. Yeah, it really, really has. You know, not just your stuff about Grange Hill, but also other things that you've done in the industry as well. It really, really has been brilliant talking to you. So thank you so much for coming on. And to anyone that's listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.